Don't touch mine.
Episode of Whoscussion. We're your hosts, That Random Guy, and the wonderful, the essentially pleasing Harriet Skelly.
Coming live to you from the Random Guy's house.
Yes, indeedy, we are together in one room. Very rarely does that happen. I don't think we've actually ever done a Whoscussion episode together.
I don't think we have.
So this is quite the treat. So, today we're only going to be doing semi-part B, which will be The Road to Hell, the 8th Doctor comic book featuring Izzy Sinclair, and Wet Walls, the 5th Doctor audio story.
And that Road to Hell also contains Gaijin.
Yeah, it actually contains the word and the alien, the Gaijin.
Which is kind of, we always seem to do this on Doctor Who. We seem to mesh things together really well. And we are actually going to Japan. That's why we're going to be off air for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting that the story is set in Japan.
I think it's really ironic as well because last week we were talking about imagine a story set in feudal Japan, and here we are in feudal Japan. Harriet Skelly, The Road to Hell, take us away.
Well, it starts off with some interesting things going on, mainly an introduction to the location we will be in. We meet some, well, I guess for people who aren't familiar with Japanese culture of the time, we some samurai, and we deal with their way of life, really. At the time, the 17th century.
So they're completely isolated from the rest of the world.
Yes, they have completely isolated themselves, in particularly fun ways. We can talk about that later. We meet up with Sato, who is who's a samurai in the time, and he basically watch his master get killed by some demons.
Yeah. It's not even just like a casual killing. One of the demons burns his face off.
Yeah, like burns him to a cinder. It's pretty crazy. Like he looks like a bunch of matchsticks on the ground with the way that he's been drawn, and it's quite. Whew, they would not have got away with that on television. So it goes from there. Doctor and Izzy find themselves in there. Doctor thinks that he's in the time of Japan where they're actually quite open to foreigners. They're not. Immediately get hunted down by the Shogun's army at the time, and then find themselves facing off a fire-breathing dragon.
It's like the classic Asian dragon as well.
Yeah, it looks more Chinese than Japanese, but I guess it's because of the origins of this dragon get explained later on as to being on a magnificent tapestry that the lead villain, I guess, has seen since childhood, which obviously would have come from China at some point, which is why it's a Chinese dragon, which makes a lot of sense. I'm surprised the Doctor didn't point that out as well, but he was like, that's actually a Chinese dragon, that doesn't make any sense. But,
comic book writers.
I imagine that the Doctor probably did totally know that, just didn't say anything. From there, Izzy meets this. She basically runs away on a horse, and she
not by choice,
not by choice. She gets picked up by Sato, and introduced. Has a little bit of an introduction with him. She describes herself. She basically explains that. Well, first off, she explains that she's actually a female because they keep calling her a dude for the whole time it's floating on the air. And then from there, she tells him her name, which is Izzy, but in Japanese that's
Iji.
Yeah, which translates to pride, and he loses himself.
Yeah. What I find interesting about that, though, is because now you understand how the TARDIS translates. So it turned her name into Romaji of her name to his Japanese ears. Yeah. So I thought that was quite interesting.
Well, I think it's also the way that Japanese nouns work.
Yeah.
And just nouns in general work in a lot of languages in general. is that when you translate that into a noun, you don't normally have something to go back on, unless of course it's from something else. Like I imagine if the Doctor ever took Rose to France at any time, people would have been like, "Why is your name pink?"
Yeah.
What? Like, oh, the singer. Oh. But yeah. Anyway, so I guess that's probably how it works. Is that if they don't have a way of translating it, the way the TARDIS works is it just makes it a noun. So it's just like, okay, so she just said Izzy, so he hears Izzy, and because he doesn't do the S's very well, he's like, oh, Iggy, okay. Yeah, it kind of works. Of course, considering a lot of Japanese names are nouns in places. Yeah, that's the way that they
and the interesting thing is a lot of the time when Z is brought up, and especially like a double Z sound, they'll use a J as well when making it into katakana. So I love that like that little like bubble. There's so much to that because now you see how the TARDIS translate. I think it's the only real time that you actually properly understand how it translates. Yeah, is that one little bubble of dialogue.
Yeah, because then there's like later on in the new series, there's a couple of points to it, particularly when Donna Noble brings up the fact, what if I say something in actual Italian to Italian people, and then they're like, oh, you sound, what was that?
And he thinks they're Celtic.
Yeah, it makes them sound like they're Celtic. It's like, why does that just makes it more infuriating. That's less explanation than more. So yeah, from there, Doctor gets introduced to the bad guy through a series of weird things going on. People getting poisoned, stuff. Yeah, bad things. Eventually gets introduced to the aliens that look like brain cicadas. It's weird.
Actually, that is an apt description. I'm going to make them the thumbnail. They are brain cicadas.
Brain cicadas. And they're calling themselves the Gaijin, which in Japanese means foreigners. And then it gets explained away pretty quickly because they basically say we didn't actually have a name for ourselves with that kind of people. So we just sort of went with whatever they gave us, and that's just what happened. Which I guess is kind of interesting, as in the standpoint of aliens that don't really name themselves. Because I mean, it takes a certain level of reverse ego to not do that. I imagine that probably they did have a name for themselves once, but they just lost that to time. Seems fair enough to me. They appear to be trying to learn things that obviously the transition from being cicadas to being brain cicadas obviously got lost, where they are trying to figure out and understand what honor is, and they've probably come to the perfect place for it, 17th century Japan, except they've chosen the worst possible people to go with, people who are totally not honorable in any way. Where they're murdering their kin, using these powers that these gaijin have given them to wreak havoc upon their enemies in completely not nice ways.
Because they're the ones creating these effigies of demons and dragons as these gaijins. I mean, they don't realize it's a bad thing because of I suppose their culture. They're like, oh, it's just a thing they're doing. Which means they're like the ultimate anti-prejudice people, because they're like, oh, that's just what they do here. We'll let them kill each other.
And then of course they do make some points to say that that the Doctor is very much like them. He comes and chooses a side and just does from there. It's like, not really. Doctor normally chooses the side of not being a bad guy. So that's generally how it goes. You guys totally didn't do that. But then of course by the end he basically explains to them what honor actually means. And explains to them that what they're doing and what they're allowing to happen is not honourable, and they should probably do something about it. So they sort of huddle together and actually do a rugby thing where they just huddle together and talk it out, and then they go, yeah, all right, we'll sort that out.
Yeah, what I like about them though is that they end up realising they made a major boo-boo, and they blow themselves up. Yeah,
I think they just warp her stuff back into their reality. They're just we'll just take her away with us.
That makes a lot more sense, because I was thinking, did they just commit
kind of the end of that horrible movie, the crystal one. Yeah, I shouldn't say its name.
Oh, right.
That's what happened. The end of that movie by the Spielberg guy.
Yeah.
That one.
Yes. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, that's exactly how it ended.
That is exactly how it ended.
Some interesting points before the finale, though, is Sato is killed. And Izzy is like, I really wanted to help this guy out. So the Doctor uses the nanobite technology to make him immortal.
Yep.
So what's interesting here is, the whole... Isn't he meant to be afraid of hybrids thing? And he just made this guy a hybrid, Gaijin nanomachine
that's
thing?
That's the thing, is that I guess at this point in time, he never really thought that is a hybrid. And I mean, he's done it before where he's allowed nanites to cure people in different ways. So he'd never... I'm guessing that the Doctor never really had that hybrid feeling. And then it was only recently that he was like, hey, I've actually been doing that the whole time. Oh my god, I am totally dumb.
Yeah, because he makes this guy immortal in the exact same way he makes a Shielder immortal. Identical.
Almost identical.
Yeah, so
it's just different aliens.
Yeah, different aliens. So it's interesting. Sato, from what I've seen online, becomes a recurring character for the 8th Doctor. So I'm actually looking forward to seeing more of him and seeing what time does to him. I'm wondering if time makes him bitter like it did to a Shielder, because then I'm like, Stephen, you just totally ripped off Sato. Yeah. I'm loving Izzy, and one of the best moments is Izzy's mind gets read, and it's actually one of the saddest moments as well, because Asami, the villainess of the story, she uses these powers that the Gaijin have given her to read Izzy's mind, and Izzy tries to put her off by showing her anime, and I love how Asami sees it and she's like, what is this crap? Does Japan actually start making this? And she's like, what? We're honourable. We wouldn't do something like this. And then she sees the bombs, and Izzy tried really hard not to show her that. And this is sort of the breaking point on a mental scale for Asami, and she loses it and uses her power to start destroying Japan, which is funny because she keeps talking about how she wants to make Japan great. You kind of can't do that when you're raising it to the ground.
Mm-hmm. Especially when she literally brings into existence Godzilla.
Yeah, I love that when Godzilla shows up, and to get around copyright infringement, it has laser eyes. Because the Doctor goes, does it breathe fire? And she's like, no, worse, laser eyes.
And it even has horns and stuff to make it look visually not like Godzilla.
That's so perfect. And Godzilla fights that mecha soldier, right?
Yeah.
It's perfect. And there's an Astro Boy knockoff that's flying around and beating up bad guys. It's perfect. I'm really liking the Marvel Comics run of the 8th Doctor. I think the Marvel Comics probably some of the best Doctor Who I think we've done on Whoscussion.
It is really, really great.
It's really good.
And I'm really sad that a lot of it is not going to be on television.
Yeah.
Especially considering a lot of it's not very family friendly.
Especially Sato's dead.
Yeah, especially that stuff.
Yeah.
Especially Sato later trying to kill himself.
Yeah.
Literally. That's
finding out he's immortal.
Yeah, that's quite crazy.
Yeah. I don't think you'd ever get away with that on TV, Who. Unless they brought Sato onto Torchwood.
Yeah. That's basically it. So if that would have been a much better final season if he had shown up.
Yeah, I was wreaking hat. That would be so good. That final season was so bad that now they're only Big Finish.
Yeah, because then Jack would be like, wait, you're immortal? Who made you immortal? The Doctor? What?
Yeah.
What?
But he's super racist towards me because I'm more immortal. Yeah.
And then he'd be like, yeah, me too.
yeah. It's pretty weird.
There's just been just at the end of the universe, and just be this collection of immortals that the Doctor made. I can just imagine.
Yeah.
That's absolutely going to happen.
Yeah.
Just
the end of the universe.
I need someone
all
to draw.
Of them.
I need someone to draw this up. I need someone to draw this up. I need it to be.
All the immortals that the Doctor's responsible for at the end. Again, with these stories, you can pick them up on Comixology and Comic Books Unlimited, both apps for your phone and web browser interfaces. And with that, we'll move on to the 5th Doctor short trip, Wet Walls.
Oh yeah.
Wet Walls is not as much of a tearjerker as the 5th Doctor's last outing, that's for sure.
It's quite weird.
But it's really weird. And again, like the 5th Doctor's story, that was weird last time as well, where they had the inanimate objects coming to life. And this one, the walls of this house appear wet for only a certain group of people.
Yes.
The Doctor finds out later on in the story it's only women who can see it. Which
That's
is
quite an interesting thing.
Yeah, I was just like, well, that's a bit risque for you guys to try and write that in. And the reason behind it is because the house has been turned into an artificial womb.
Yeah. Which is, if some people may have picked up on, that is why it is called wet walls.
Yes.
As reference to a wet room for wetness.
Yeah.
That sort of stuff.
So what's interesting in this story, though, is that the Doctor lands in 1903, and he rocks up to this house, and he wants to get out of the water. I don't know where he's left the TARDIS. Knowing the Doctor, he'll be like, I parked it somewhere safe, and then it ended up being a barge that's left for London, and leaving him stuck in Scotland. That's where I can see it. So he's in Scotland, and he ends up knocking on a random house. He's like, hey, do you mind if we come in out of the rain? And the individual Gretchen that opens the door is like, are you a doctor? He's like, I am. Actually, funny you should ask that. And it happens a lot, actually. The Doctor turns up when a Doctor's needed. And it happened in last year's Christmas special as well. Yeah. He turned up, and the interesting thing about it is people don't seem to realize he's not the right Doctor, because somehow the correct Doctor never turns up. I hope there's a Big Finish story where it happens, where the actual real Doctor turns up while he's in the adventure. That'd be interesting.
That would be great.
I'd love that. But the Doctor knocks on pretty quickly what type of alien it is, because he's not seeing these wet walls, and he finds it something interesting about the woman quotation marks that's looking after the lady of the house, Lady Catherine. Perry, upon discovering that it's only women that can see it, asks why Gretchen can't. Turns out Gretchen, the person who opened the door, was in fact a bloke, and was from a lower caste system than the lady of the house, so they couldn't be seen together, but they are madly in love. And were they married? Did he mention that?
I don't think they were, because they couldn't get married.
Yeah, because of the caste
Which
system.
is also why he didn't want a person of the cloth to show up.
Yeah. Because they'd be all like, you can't live together in sin. Yeah. Like, shut up, come on. It's the 20th century now, 1903. With the times. So the Doctor then finds out that there's these little weedy aliens, and there's one reading a newspaper or whatever,
chilling
outside that.
It's like, I'm just waiting for my co-pilot to be born. That's all I'm doing here.
And he's like, but you're driving the people inside insane. He's like, yeah, I'm real soz about that, but I need a co-pilot on the fly home.
I actually need a co-pilot right now. And then Gretchen shoots him.
I love it. The Doctor's like, why?
Why did you do that? And then he just turns into goo and just slips into the spaceship. And then just miraculously, the house gives birth to these to the co-pilot. Turns out it's twins, so they could totally get home now. It's just such a wraparound to the story.
It's so bizarre, and I love. Because this stories are read by Peter Davison. His Perry impression is
so
amazing. Oh, come on, Doctor. At least Peter Davison gave it a bloody go, I guess. So, what are your thoughts on the story, Hercule?
It's very interesting. I like the idea of them, a race of people who are all male, who have effectively made it so that to have children, they've turned particular, turn buildings into wombs for things.
Yeah.
So they've obviously just developed the technology of creating a womb and just, what's the word I'm looking for? Just an artificial life creation thing that they obviously put their own genetic material into and just continue doing that stuff. To the point of having gotten rid of women somewhere along their
evolutionary journey. It seems like they've become purely male. I don't think that was by choice, though.
No, I don't think that was by choice. I imagine that maybe something happened to their race that did that, which is a very interesting idea, and I wish we would see more of it at some point, maybe. Come on, guys.
Yeah. Hashtag Chris Turnbull, I hope you're listening. When you take over, that's us.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's really interesting, especially the idea that obviously they did this normally without putting it in a different plane of existence, so that only certain people could see it. They would do it out in the open. They just turn houses into big wet.
Imagine if they turned a Dravin's house into a day. Could you imagine that, like a Dravin, that'd be pretty great. Like a Dravin just been like, it's a man alien, shooting a Dravin gun at him. That'd be great. I'd love to see that. You landed on the wrong planet in Galaxy 4, brother.
Oh man, that would be great to see those two civilizations meet up. That would actually be the epiphany of just the sex war going on. It would just be so beautiful. And then the Doctor shows up and it's like, why are you guys fighting? Come on.
Like gooey males versus like extreme Amazonian sci-fi woman. That'd be so great.
You'd have to have a female companion at the time so they could totally do the blending.
Yeah. It would be absolutely perfect. And the Dravin going, you don't want me to kill the gooey male? No, I don't want you to kill the gooey male. They end up becoming this like hybrid race, Dravin gooey people. What
Oh
were
my
they?
god, that would be amazing actually. Like a warrior race merged with these hyper smart organic creatures that can turn or normal old buildings into organic matter.
Yeah.
Just, that would be a terrible, terrible thing to do. Right, Doctor, don't do it. Don't let it happen.
There's like an anti-eating meat movements that turn houses into like protein. Like, build a giant house, I'll turn it into beef. Alrighty, well, that is us, and we will be going on hiatus for a fortnight. It's going to be interesting, and we're going to be big in Japan.